Okay. I just want to make sure that I can continue and start going. Okay. How's everybody doing? How you guys doing? How's everybody feeling? I'm sorry that I couldn't get my camera to work. I have a dual PC setup, as you guys probably know from stream. It's the first time doing Zoom, so I didn't know how to like kind of figure that out, but at least you guys can hear me and see my screen and stuff like that. So basically we're just going to go into because they just opened the pro guides today, and it's the first time that everybody's seen this, and even me. So I'm just going to go through all the like modules and challenges and stuff like that with you guys, the first time, and then we're going to go into the questions together. So let's get into it. First things first, we're going to go through module 1, understanding your role in legend. I'm just going to watch the first video just, as an example. This is just like kind of like, I guess, like an orientation to like kind of see, like show you how, the website's going to look and stuff like that before going into it. So
Hey, Hal, can you hear me? Hey, Hal, can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah, your Discord's, or sorry, your Zoom audio isn't set up. So what we're just gonna have you do is just scroll through, okay?
I didn't know there's no audio this whole time.
Sorry about that. We're just figuring out audio. It's whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, you got it.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay, my bad. Okay, so I guess the audio for the video, you can't hear the video through the Zoom, but we'll just go through the text and stuff like that. So basically, for the most of the modules, there's going to be like a video and a bunch of text on explaining like that video in text. And like, just like, for example, understanding your role in legend. So you're going to see me in a video explaining, in person why it's important to do, have certain defensive characters, have certain recon characters and stuff like that. And then, like I said earlier, we're going to have it in text to explain basically why it's very important to have certain roles on the team, like IGL, the fragger, the old man, obviously, Jordan, the support, etc. So, and once you're like done with one module, it's also very important to be consistently doing like the modules and the challenges, because you have like a whole month to kind of finish that. And once you're done, I guess, with like one module, make sure you use like these buttons up top, because I was trying to use this button up here and I kind of got lost. So make sure you click like, when you click on a module, always use the buttons on the top right to like, click next, so you don't get lost and, lose track of where you're at and stuff like that. And obviously you can go back clicking on previous and to like navigate back and forth. So like I said, I think the biggest thing when you guys go through the modules is to be consistently, at it, because you have like a whole month to kind of get through everything. It's like but yeah, that's the whole point of the modules, to get through the month. Let's see. So I think let's go through planning your drop spot. Like I said, another video, just like the previous one, to kind of explain, why it's so important. Basically, to give you like, there's a visual example, and then you have text to like break it down and explain to you, you know, more in further like explanations. It's going to be very like, if you have any questions, obviously like you can ask them right here in the Discord channel. If when you're going through these, you know, even if we have these Q&A sessions, I like 2 days ago, like, or 2 nights ago, I was answering questions at night with a bunch of people for a couple hours. So if you guys have questions that you forget about, you know, asking today, like during this time, you guys can ask like a different time, and I will try my best to, you know, answer those questions the best I can. So I think we can get into the questions. I think that's like what people are waiting for.
All right, Hal, we're gonna get started if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna do my best to just go through these in order. But also if there's any repeats, I might have to skip just in case, you know, we've already answered it. But this first one, Hal, is from Morgie from Bentonville, Arizona.
Okay.
And the question is, how do you approach learning a new map?
Approach learning a new map. That's a great question.
Yep. Do you tend to land in the same spot and get a very good idea of one area first, or do you try to spread out your landings and try to get as much experience as possible everywhere?
Well, that's a great question since the new map literally came out yesterday. I think the best way to learn a map personally is to try to land at as many different spots on the map as possible. Kind of like, you know, if you're stuck at landing at one spot in a new map, like even if you like the spot and you have success landing there all the time or whatever, you need to learn the map, right? Like if you land only in the center, then you don't know like the areas of the edges of the map or whatever. So it's best to just, that's what I did during stream yesterday. If you were watching, it's best to literally just land at every, like if you've been to like, I don't know, like, I think one of the POIs is called High Point, or like the lightning rod in the corner of the map. You want to obviously be landing in other areas, like, you know, the center of the map or the southeast corner, to kind of just learn like certain positions and stuff like that. You definitely do not want to just consistently land at one spot every single game. So you can learn and understand, you know, what spots are good and not on the map.
Sweet. Moving on to the next question from Notions from Santa Rosa, California. I've been playing Apex for about 1.5 years now. I've peaked at Masters and I've been trying to push into Predator. I struggle with my aim being consistent. Do you have any tricks that help you get better with consistency? And obviously, Hal, you're obviously one of the most consistent players in Apex. So what tips do you have for consistency?
Best tips for consistency: do not change your settings. I know a lot of people always like, I'm gonna be honest, I'm also guilty of it. I still sometimes do it. I change my, you know, like my mouse or my mouse pad here and there. But the biggest thing to stay consistent is to maintain your settings. Do not change your mouse. Do not change your mouse pad. Do not change your sensitivity. Do not change your resolution. Because it's all about like muscle memory, right? Like, you know, if I played 5,000 hours on 2.0 400 DPI sensitivity, and then all of a sudden I changed to, you know, 2.2 400 DPI or whatever, and all those hours that you like put up playing on that one like setting or resolution, whatever it is kind of just like kind of thrown out the window. And then you're technically like relearning the game. So I don't know if you have been like changing your settings or not, trying to get to pred, but in my experience, the best thing to maintain consistency is do not change like any of your like, you know, equipment or settings in game. And 2, obviously you have to consistently put in the hours every single day, because like, let's say, you know, you only play, let's say like 3 days out of the 7 or something like that, then you won't be consistent because you'll be taking like a good amount of break. Obviously you don't want to be, you know, playing so much Apex to the point where you have nothing else, you know, you're doing, but you want to be consistently putting in the work to stay consistent, which is trying to play at least a couple hours a day. For sure, each like, you know, weekend, weekday, to put a couple hours in.
Fantastic. We've got a couple questions now from Jazz and Cook, both from Texas, about third parties. They feel like they're getting third party a lot, and they're like maybe even getting focused a lot when we are the third party. What tips do you have in terms of maybe like a step-by-step process or checklist for preventing this kind of thing from happening when it comes to third parties? And we do cover this later in the modules. So
Yeah. So it kind of depends on. I've obviously every map has third parties, but the new map, if you've been playing it, I played it for like 11 hours yesterday, and the third parties is like non-existent. But let's just stick to the third party concept. Basically, the best way to kind of there's a bunch of things that you can help with third partying, right? So one thing I think is to when you do take a fight with somebody, like let's say in KC or World's Edge or whatever, especially on a map like KC, and not trying to get third party, which is almost like very impossible on that map since it's very small. You need to make the fight like clean and concise, right? If the fight takes way too long, let's say like what is way too long is let's say like there really isn't like a definitive answer to saying like what is long for a fight, right? Like how long if like is a long fight. But I'd say anything like that's longer than a minute is usually like too long, and you're gonna most likely get third partied. So I think the best thing to kind of stop third parties is to when you do engage in the fight to kind of end the fight as quickly as possible, right? Not to the point where you get yourself killed for and try to like jump pad on somebody or land on somebody because you want the fight to end really quickly, but you don't want to die for it. You're trying to end it really quickly. So you want to stick to finishing the fight, but also win it at the same time. And let's say the fight does take too long and isn't stuff is not getting anywhere, then you should just back away from it, obviously, because you don't want to get third party, right? Like if one of your players gets down, then it's kind of over. But let's say you do take a fight. The fight did take a little bit longer than you wanted it to be, and one player got down on your team. Then you want to, let's say, it's all very situational, right? So let's say you have a Bloodhound, you have a Jibby, and you have a Wraith, and your Bloodhound got down or something like that. So you finish the fight, you won the fight, Bloodhound's down after the fight, third party is coming in, you just got down in a building. You want to make sure that your Jibby, let's say if he doesn't have bubble, then your Jibby wants to res right away. Just in case he has gold bag, he's usually the one with the gold bag. You want him to be resing. And then the Wraith player or the Octane player, you want that person to be dropping an armor swap for that player that is down. So while the Jibby is resing, just in case that, let's say Jibby does not have a gold bag, there's an armor on the ground so that player can pick up the armor right away without having to go into the box. And, it just takes way longer. Having an armor on the ground is just way quicker and it's safer, right? So just in case you do have a third party. Another thing, let's say you after you finish the fight, and let's say you also use all your nades, you want to pick up nades as fast as possible, because just in case the third party is coming through, let's say that it is, you want to use your nades to kind of stall out and hold out the enemy team if you're in a building, right? You can nade off doorways, you can use thermites. I think thermites is thermites probably the most efficient because they can block vision, it can block audio, it can block like a more area with the thermite compared to like an arc star or a frag. But arc stars and frags still do the job. But when you do get third party, you want to use your nades to kind of throw it at the doorways or in any way or anywhere like there's entries of path or where people can come through. You use your nades on that spot to kind of like buy your team time to heal up and stuff like that. Also, let's say you also have a caustic, you want to use your caustic on your team to if he hasn't used his caustic in the previous fight that you guys won, throw your caustic outside the any of the entries where people are going to come through. Throw out traps on doors that people are going to come through doors. Basically try to find ways to stall as much as possible while you're if your teammates are getting rezzed or whatever it is that's happening after the fight, by using nades, using your caustic abilities, even using yourself. Like let's say you don't have a caustic, you don't have any nades, then you want to you can maybe even use your Octane pad to block a door. You can use your Wraith portal to block a door. Or just the best thing is to, after you get down and there's a third party coming, is to figure out ways to buy time as much as possible so you guys can reset, get full health before you fight the next scene.
All right, sweet. Hal, we're gonna keep moving here. I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna have to skip around a little bit just so we make sure we get through as many as we can.
Sorry,
and
also, long answer.
No, you're good. I think all of that was fantastic. There are also a lot of these questions that are going to be covered to some extent within the modules. So I might be skipping some of them that we feel are pretty well covered. So this next one is from Jordan from Virginia, who's been playing Apex for 1.5 years. How important is chemistry versus skill level when looking to climb ranks and find a team that fits?
Oh my God. Chemistry is probably way more important than skill level. You see, it kind of depends on the person, I guess, actually, because without like me knowing who you are and whatever, I think it's very important to have good chemistry within a team, because like most people don't like, if me personally, when I'm playing with a team, I don't really care like if I have good chemistry, right? Like I care about winning and doing well or whatever, and then like that chemistry stuff is not like how we kind of blend. But at the same time, you can't have a good team without having good chemistry. Like you won't perform well without good chemistry, right? You can have like the best individual players on the team, and you won't do well because the chemistry is just not there, right? Like you have 3 Wraith players that are very like individually skilled on one team, but they don't know how to play Gibby, they don't know how to play Caustic, they don't know how to play any other character except Wraith, but they are very individually skilled. So chemistry is so much more important for this question. It is like unbelievably more important. Obviously you want to have skill in every player that you are playing with, but you want to make sure that the players that you do play with, obviously you blend well with, like, you vibe with, and you also want to make sure that the characters that they play, they're comfortable with. Like you don't want to be playing with 2 other players that also play Octane or also play Bloodhound with the same role as you, because then you're going to be playing on like a team. You're going to be playing a team comp with most likely no defensive characters, and then when you get third party, like the previous question, you're going to be dead, because as soon as you get down, you have nothing to defend yourself with, because you're playing Octane, Wraith, Bloodhound, and you have no Caustic, you have no Jibby, etc. So chemistry, when I think of chemistry, I think of having the right players on the right roles on the right characters on your team, and that's like very important before you even get into the game.
Well said. All right, moving on to the next question from Beaches Cold, Long Island, New York. He's been playing Apex for 5 months. Is there a specific quality you find separates plat and diamond players, which is heavily relevant because we've got a lot of plat and diamond players in the bootcamp right now? So
qualities that separate plat and diamond players. I think I answered this question like 2 nights ago, actually. I can't. There isn't. I can't really like pinpoint one thing, but I think like as you go higher in the ranks, I think like 2 things that are just like that help you like separate yourself between the ranks, and that is decision making and your gun skill, right? When you watch players that are like platinum compared to Predator, like their decision making is way lackluster, and their aim might be like mediocre, but they don't know like when to take the right fight, they don't know where to position themselves, etc. So I think as you do like rank up, you get better at your decision making, you get better with your gun skill. When I talk about like gun skill is like, a player with a good gun skill is like a player that can use type of any gun, like you kind of like Snipe Down, he can only use one gun. That's why he loses all the time. So a guy, you want to have good gun skill, right? So you want to be able to use any type of gun you want, which is why you play like solo pubs, and pick up, you can use a 301 whenever you want, you can use an R9, etc. You don't want to have a gun at any point where you want to be like, oh my God, I suck at this gun, I can't use this, blah, 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 right? Like you want to be able to pick up, obviously there's guns that are worse than others, like Mozambiques and P20s and stuff like that, but you're gonna be in a situation where you're gonna have only a P20 Mozambique, right? And you're gonna have to make the best of it, and that's where people with good gun skill like Predator separates from people in platinum. But to the question, like platinum and diamond, I think that's like the biggest difference is just probably gun skill in that rank between platinum and diamond. They do have like similar decision making, but I think people in diamond, they can somewhat fight Predator players or Masters players. So I would say if you're a platinum player and trying to get to diamond, I would recommend just playing like solo pubs to kind of improve your individual skill and how to take fights and communicate with your team when you do play solo platinum ranked.
Fantastic. All right, Hal, we are gonna have to try to keep these answers a bit shorter, just so we can try to get us through as many as we can.
Okay,
Obviously,
I'll try my best.
yeah, thanks. The next two questions, kind of connected. So from Minsquid and Belix, next one is kind of about pressure, right? So how do you deal with choking up and not keeping cool mid fight, and also obviously IGLing is a lot of pressure. How do you deal with pressure in general, in terms of when you play Apex?
Well, I've been playing for ever since the game came out, so I can't like right now the pressure is like I do have pressure, right? Like like when I play before a tournament, like I have anxiety and stuff like that. But when I play, I don't really like feel anything. But I think the main reason how I am able to like control the pressure from like playing tournaments and having so many people watching me, because people ask me all the time, how do you feel with like 50,000 or whatever, how many people are watching me? I think it's just like experience, because I've kind of played so much, like so many tournaments and ranked and etc. Like I've put myself in so many situations where I'm like having to 1v2, 1v1, 1v3 throughout these 2 years or 2 years or more of Apex. Like I'm kind of just used to it. I think that's like the best way if people are like nervous playing a tournament or competing. The best way to kind of like you kind of just need to power through it. Like you need to play as much as possible, like play as many tournaments and like get that experience through, because the more you go through it, the more like those like bad feelings of like the pressure and like the nerves go away. That's how it was with me. um I think that's how, like the best way to kind of handle it is just get as much experience as possible. And kind of I try to like clear my mind before tournaments just in case something else is going on the outside. I like listen to music, kind of calm myself down to help with like anxiety and stuff like that. So I think it is the best way to just gain as much experience as possible to kind of. And another thing I think I forgot to mention this is confidence. If you're not confident in yourself, that like pressure or any other feeling, anxiety is going to like literally just tear you apart. So confidence and experience, those two things, they don't have any either of those, like pressure and all those feelings are just going to destroy you.
Awesome. This next question I think is pretty important. From Enemy Slaughter 209 from San Antonio, Texas. He's been playing Apex for a year. He's got some competitive experience under his belt. I'm going to kind of condense these questions really quick. What do you think is the biggest difference between ranked and like an actual competitive like tournament lobby? What are some of the biggest differences in your mind?
Okay, so the biggest difference is the amount of players. Compared to ranked, like in ranked, there is you can run around and do whatever you want, right? But in competitive, you're gonna have like if you're in a good competitive lobby, right? Or like a good competitive tournament or whatever it is, competitive for Apex, most likely everyone's going to be alive. Like there's going to be at least 15 teams, second, third zone, compared to ranked where you guys have probably, seen it when you've been playing. There's like, less than 10 teams alive, second or even first zone, right? So that's like the biggest difference. And, you might like not realize, oh, that's not a big deal. There's only a couple more teams, but trust me, when you play like with the full lobby alive with, such a smaller zone and stuff like that, your like decision make you're like that pressure, you're going to start to settle, because you're going to realize, oh my god, I have so much less space to work with because there's so many more players alive, etc. So I think the biggest difference is just that the amount of players alive. When there's a lot more players alive, then your decision making is a lot harder, because if you let's say you want to push somebody in a competitive lobby, then you're most likely you might be able to get third party more likely because of there's 18 other teams alive. But compared to a ranked game where you can push somebody and there's only 9 other teams alive, and it's way less likely for you to get third party. So decision making like in a ranked or in a competitive lobby compared to a ranked lobby is so much more important, because you make that one wrong decision, like taking the wrong fight or taking the wrong position, you're going to die for it, because since everyone's kind of like obviously looking to kill another in the competitive lobby. So like you said earlier in the previous question about like pressure, when people play competitive lobbies, everyone's afraid to make the first move, which results in a lot more people being alive towards the end of the game. So I think the biggest difference is just the amount of players in the lobby that are alive towards the whole game, resulting into like more critical decision making compared to ranked games.
Cool. This next one is a bit more personal. It's from Suku from Toronto, Canada, who's been playing Apex for about a year. If you could tell us a little bit about your past self before you started playing Apex, one thing, what would it be and why?
Tell my past self.
A bit more personal, you know?
Yeah. I was expecting this. I'm trying to think. What would I tell my past self before Apex? I don't know. It's like, trying to think. What would I tell myself? I think I would tell myself to, I guess I think I still have a problem now. I would probably tell myself to learn how to control my emotions more. I think that's like the biggest thing. Like I've been more like you guys have seen me on stream, like, you know, being like raging and stuff like that after, you know, something happens, like something stupid or whatever, and I rage or, you know, yell, whatever, like stuff like that. Obviously there's always a time and place for that, right? It's not always okay to be like that. But I think the best thing, I think that's what I would tell myself, like my younger self, to like, you know, start to like be able to control myself more in situations where I should be upset, but not like overboard or whatever. So to kind of give more like calmer, you know, criticism to my teammates and stuff like that. I think that's the best thing that I would probably tell myself to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This next one I think is actually really important for a lot of people. It's from Real Wheatley 721 from Mexico City. He's got a really good grasp of a lot of these like advanced movement mechanics, but you know, he's been struggling to put it into actual fights and matches on a practical level, right? What's your take? And I know because we've spoken about this before, but what's your take on kind of like the implementation of using some of these like flashier mechanics in a real game? What's important to know?
Important to know, like, what I don't understand the question. Like, what do you mean? Like
implementing, like, you know, the risk reward of like implementing some of these like harder mechanics into an actual fight.
Well, a lot of the like more complicated mechanics is movement, and you guys I've seen my like stream and stuff like that. So I've probably said on stream where like I don't think like complicated mechanics and stuff like that is very that important. Like, you know, super gliding and wall jumping, stuff like that. Like it's when it came out, like wall jumping, I didn't even wall jump for like it was probably a couple months until I actually started wall jumping. I never saw use of it. I was like, okay, cool. I just think stuff like complicated, obviously it can help your play or whatever, but it's not like a necessity, right? Everyone wants to improve, right, in this boot camp and to be like the best version of an Apex player. So I'm not gonna like tell you no, not to, you know, learn it, like super gliding and stuff like that. But like these complicated like movements and like techniques of Apex, like super gliding and stuff like that, and wall jumping, it's really it's like the one like the least like important things that you should learn. It's not, I don't think it's not like a necessity. So I think like things more, you know, positioning and like decision making and stuff like that is a lot more important to like to understand compared to, you know, more complicated like movement techniques and stuff like that in the game, in my opinion. But yeah.
All right, this next one is from Frosty Girl from Austin, Texas, who's been playing Apex since it came out. He or she recently switched to PC in July and then MNK a month ago. Finds themselves choking a bit when it comes to MNK fights, and you know, like panic, forget keybinds and stuff. Obviously, like switching between different inputs can be really stressful, right? You know, you play a bit of both. So, what are your thoughts in terms of just like having a good grasp of all the different inputs and the different controls and stuff?
So you just swapped to mouse to key. So I swapped to mouse to key like a while, or yeah, I swapped to mouse to key like a bunch of years ago. I was like a teenager when I swapped. I used to play console, so I was like in the same boat as you. I same thing with like kind of handling pressure to like understand how to play on another input. It's all about just experience and playing through it, right? Some people take longer than others, obviously, so you don't want to like be down on yourself if you're in like 2 months of playing mouse and key or 3 months of mouse and key and you still feel like you don't have any grasp of the like the keyboard. I guess let's say, you know, if you're having still like troubles understanding like how to press the keys and stuff like that, you can maybe try different keyboards, you know, like this is when you play the, when you first swap to a different input, like controller, or like let's say like this is in this situation, you're swapping the mouse and key, right? This is like the perfect time where to experiment. I know I said earlier where you shouldn't be changing your settings and stuff like that to stay consistent, like your keyboard and stuff like that. But just because you just started like swapping to mouse and key, I think it's very important to, this is the perfect time to experiment with what you like and what you don't like, right? So you can experiment higher sensitivity, you can experiment different keyboard, maybe get a smaller keyboard, or maybe you like bigger keyboards, maybe smaller keycaps, something like that, to kind of figure out like, what you like, what you don't like on PC in terms of like mice, maybe smaller mouse, bigger mouse, stuff like that. I think that's like the biggest thing when you first swap to a different input like mouse key, to kind of just experiment what you don't like in like in game and like out of game in terms of like, mouse or keyboard and mouse pads and stuff like that.
We're getting this a question a lot, so I'm not gonna say specific names, but we've got a lot of people asking about just IGLing in general, right? A lot of people obviously here are either IGLing for their friends or just want to know more about what IGLing is and how it works. Do you have some general tips and stuff in terms of like how you learned and became such an amazing IGL?
So how I learned, obviously I didn't start playing games like at my first game wasn't Apex, right? So I played a game called H1Z1, which it was probably like more than 2 years ago. It was like 3 or 4 years ago. I was playing a game called H1Z1, and there was a player called Prodigy Aces. Some of you might have heard him through my stream. And he was the IGL for our team, and I basically learned through him how to kind of IGL. And as I kind of play with teams, or I kind of went my own way of playing Fortnite and stuff like that, I kind of, filled that role because I realized, hey, I'm playing, like I used to play with Frex in Fortnite, right? And he wasn't really that like person to IGL or whatever. So I kind of like just naturally kind of took that position, I guess, because I realized, hey, no one else is on my team like that's going to do that. So I learned from Prodigy Aces in H1 and then kind of carried it over to other games. A couple of things, I guess, to understand how to be a good IGL is, I think the one thing is you need to be very like decisive. You can't, in like a really good IGL, you can't like hesitate. As soon as you hesitate, then you can get your whole team killed, right? If it's way better to like do a bad play with your whole team than hesitate and then just kind of die and not do a play because you were not confident. So I guess confidence follows up with having making a call. If you don't have that confidence, then you're going to start to hesitate, and then that's going to result into bad decision making. So I think that's one quality like a good IGL should have. But I kind of as I was like IGLing on the team with Mac and Jordan, I kind of just learned on the way, right? Like, like I said, I learned with Prodigy Aces, and then I kind of, before I also bounced ideas off of Jordan. So it was kind of learning. I was like learning, but also playing at the same time. So it wasn't like easy, but I think the best thing is to kind of, watch people like me and like other IGs like Sweet Dreams, to when we play tournaments, to kind of match the same like decisiveness. You also want to be in somewhat like loud, so people on it, like your teammates understand what's important and what's not important. Because if, let's say, if everyone's like kind of monotone and like you're calling out something monotone, like, hey, there's a team coming behind me, and then it's your voice is not portraying how important it is, then people are not going to turn around, right? So depending on who you play with, you have to figure out a way how to kind of dictate and portray to your player or your friends or your teammates, whoever you're playing with, what's important and what's not important when stuff arises in the game.
Yeah. This next one is from Nick Knack Plays, Ontario, Canada, who's been playing since season 8. What's your best advice for approaching 1v3 situations? And I assume that also includes like 1v2, any type of like clutch numbers disadvantage situation.
Best approach for 1v3. I always say this for anything, like it doesn't really matter if it's competitive, if it's pubs or ranked. So I think the best way to approach a 1v3 is to single out the players. You're never going to win a 1v3. You're never, even maybe you can maybe win 1v2, but you're never going to win a 1v3 if you're fighting all three of them at the same time. It's literally like nobody, like unless the other like if you're playing against like three, kids from elementary school or something, and they miss like every shot, you can maybe win that 1v3. But most of the time, it's not gonna happen. So I think the best thing when you approach a 1v3, you have to single out the players. You have to single out the players, right? You can't, maybe you can make it three. You see exactly what I said. Make it 3v1 and 1v1, 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 right? You can you can do that by, it's all about positioning. It's all about positioning. That's why I say to play solo pubs, because that's how you understand decision making. You practice decision making, you practice your gun skill, you practice your positioning too when you take 3v1s. So you can use doors to single out a player. Let's say you somehow were able to one clip a player in the 3v1 right away, but you have to heal. Obviously, like most of the time when you take a 1v1, you're gonna probably get cracked or take damage, right? So you want to find a door. Like your doors are your best friend when you take a 1v3, right? Or solo trios or solo duos. You can use a door to reset and get behind the door and heal up all the way back up. And after you heal up, now you have a 1v2 or 1v1, because depending on if you're playing duos or trios. So I think like the main concept when you approach a 1v3 or 1v3, you have to single out the players in some way. And obviously it's very complicated for me to like tell you what you should do in certain situations, because every situation is different. It depends on what character you're playing. Are you playing Bloodhound? Are you playing Octane? Stuff like that. So when you take a 1v3, you have to single them out, and that's why I say solo trios is like the most important thing to do if you want to improve, because it portrays the best qualities of a player in that fight, because you have to play perfect. You have to play your abilities perfectly. Your shots have to be on point. And that's what you practice so many different characteristics of a player in one fight. And that's why it's so challenging, because you can't take a 1v4 in Apex, right? Because there's no such thing. There's no team of fours, right? So the biggest challenge can, like 1v3s can help you a lot, and singling them out as 1v1s in solo trios or even duos is the best way to start out that fight.
All right, next one is from Johnny from Michigan. Day one, how do you know when you are extended or overextended or underextended in a gunfight? I think a lot of people can relate to this. I often find myself either getting beamed or not contributing like anything in a fight.
Okay, if you're overextended and underextended. So if you want to know if you're overextended, just watch Snipedown. Another perfect example. Snipedown loves to overextend. You know why? Because he's a controller player. He sometimes lacks awareness. Okay, and I'm being honest here, and he knows that. He told me to tell him when he overextends. He knows that he's in he's in a bad spot. He wants me to tell him. You guys can all agree. Okay, you guys can agree. And the reason why he overextends is because he's a solo player. He likes to look for kills. He's very aggressive, right? And he plays on characters like on our team. He plays characters like Bloodhound and stuff like that. So he doesn't understand. He has to sit in the back and kind of play off of me, right? Like if he was playing Wraith, then he can do what overextend, like technically overextend. But when you're overextending is basically when you're playing on a character that you cannot overextend with. Like if you're playing like a Bloodhound, or if you're not playing a character like Octane or Wraith and you're like really far away from the team, you're overextended. Like if you're in front of your team as a character that's not Octane or Wraith, you're overextended. And that's just period right there. If you're Gibby or Caustic and you're in front of the team, like frontlining, you should not be. You're in the wrong position, right? A character like Octane or Wraith should always be the front line. Should always be the one overextending, because they have they have the ability to go back and have the movement. Like they have the Octane Q. You have Ash to portal back. You have Wraith Q and stuff like that. So it's very important to understand like what character you're playing, so when you when you can overextend. Is obviously it's very situational. And about underextending, I've never even heard. I don't even know that was a word, to be honest. But underextending, like if you're in the very back, if you always you let me think. You could be in the very back of your team. Like let's say you are a bloodhound or a Gibby, right? And I guess more of a bloodhound. You don't really want to be in the back if you're like a Gibby or a Wraith, obviously. So if you're like a bloodhound or it kind of like if you're in that role where you're a supportive character, then you could be in the back with the sniper and stuff like that. But if you it's very I think when it comes to like being overextended and underextended, that is like the perfect time to understand about like your game awareness. Or yeah, you get your game awareness. If you don't realize, hey, there's your teammates are in front way too far in front of me, or my teammates are way too far behind me, stuff like that, then you need to like realize that and like figure to back up or move forward, right? So that comes with game awareness to understand, hey, I'm playing Bloodhound, or hey, even if I'm playing Wraith, like even if I'm playing Wraith and I'm like across the map, right? Then you need to understand that your teammates are not close to you. You need to back all the way up, right? So when it comes to overextending, underextending, it's all about game awareness, and the best way to kind of improve your game awareness is probably playing with your team, or let's say even you just play ranked. If you're solo, even if you're playing solo ranked, try to communicate with your team and try to fight together as much as possible.
All right, so we've got actually a lot of versions of this same question, so I'm just gonna not attribute this to a single person, but basically the sentiment is, I try to switch my main in terms of legend to improve performance, but always end up coming back to my main, whether it's Revenant or Mirage or Loba or whatever it is, because they enjoy playing them, right?
Yeah.
Is it worth continuing to play who they want, or is it worth switching to something else that's going to benefit them more in comp or for the future?
Well, you got to figure out by your priorities, right? What's more important to you? Do you want to improve and become the best you can be, or do you want to have fun? So it's very easy. If you figure out what you want to be, what you want to do, then the answer to that question is very simple, right? So like if you want to have fun, then you can do whatever you want. But if you want to, since we're in the boot camp, you want to be the best version of an Apex player as you can be. You want to learn as many different characters as possible. Like obviously there's certain characters that are not important, like Mirage, like who cares about Mirage, right? But like Mirage, or what other characters like useless right now? Rampart, like useless, right? So you don't, if you're an Octane player and you're like a one trick, you don't want to be like Snipe Down, right? Come on, chat. You don't want to be a Snipe Down, Crutch Bloodhound, like one trick, right? You want to be able to play like Gibby. I know Snipe can't play Gibby. You can't. He can barely play Gibby. He doesn't even know. He can barely throw his bubble, right? Like even Jordan can only play what Watson and Gibby. That's it. They don't play other characters, right? So a lot like even literally, I'm telling you this right now. Almost so many different professional players, they do not know how to play other characters. They just don't. Sweet Dreams, one trick Wraith. He could play Octane and Wraith. What else? What else can he play? If one day if he was forced on Gibby, if he was forced on Bloodhound, he has no idea what he's doing. No idea. Okay, so if you really want to get like if you really want to be the best you can be, like an overall player, you need to understand how to play any character. And this was like I was gonna be like that one trick, right? Like my dad he was telling me to play Pathfinder. I was playing. This is when like Pathfinder was meta, right? Wraith, Pathfinder, Watson. I was like, I do not. Why do I need to play Pathfinder? I don't even play Pathfinder. Like there's no point. But just in case, like understand, like if you ever, let's say, move on from your team, or let's say you're solo queuing, most of you guys are solo queuing. You need to be able to like fill in any character because let's say someone takes your Wraith. So what are you gonna do if someone takes your Wraith, or someone takes your Octane, or whatever main character you main? What are you gonna do? You're lost. You lost before you even get into the game. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, be flexible. Exactly, XL. You want to be able to play any character and understand. You just want to fill in. It's like because you're solo queuing, most of the time you're not first pick. if you're able to fill in the characters that is needed when you're solo queuing, you just improve your chances of winning so much more. So I definitely would say just don't if you don't stick to what what you're already good at because you're not really improving yourself. Stick to stuff that you're not good at and learn things like the characters that you don't play.
Fantastic. This next question is from one of our bootcamp mods, actually, Zero. And a lot of people have been asking this too. So would you like to see the new map in comp, or do you think competitive players should stay on World's Edge?
I I think right now, since we're in the middle of Pro League, I think they should definitely introduce this new. I think they should introduce this map to comp. Yes, but I don't think right now. It's like in the middle of the Pro League. 3 weeks has already passed, right? So I think they already said after 6 weeks, or they said like the whole Pro League or this whole split is only going to be World's Edge for sure. So I think the map is very good for comp. I would have to play it out. Obviously, I can't. I can give you like a definitive answer. Like I said yes, but I'm not like 100% sure because ranked, like I said earlier, ranked is completely different compared to a competitive game because so a lot more loot is going to be taken, stuff like that. So maybe there might not be enough loot on the map for 20 teams playing competitive compared to ranked. Where in ranked, where a bunch of people die off spawn and you can loot off of other people. So I definitely, because since we've been playing World's Edge for so long, I recommend where I encourage, hopefully in the future we play a different, more than one map. I know we used to play World's Edge in KC, but KC was horrible, probably the worst map ever made in existence. So I think we should definitely, after Pro League, World's Edge and Stormpoint should be like the two maps that is in competitive, but not like right now since we're in the middle of Pro League.
Sweet. All right, the next question from Random Scars from the Philippines. What kind of tips do you have for playing against aggressive players or teams? I think, there's a lot of players out there, I think, who when they get pushed, they kind of panic, right? They might start running away.
Yes.
They don't know what to do. What are your tips for playing against a really aggressive team that's just pushing you all out?
It really depends. Like, if you have a Bloodhound, like if you're fighting a really aggressive team, then most of the time when you're fighting, actually, this is a good answer to this. If you're fighting in a really aggressive team, typically there's always going to be one guy that is overly aggressive in that team, always, and he's always going to be the one like going in by himself. So when you're fighting an overly aggressive team, you want to single out one player or even two players. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, it's very situational. Let's say you're holding a building and there's a team pushing you, right? And they seem to be, they're blowing the doors down with thermites and stuff like that, arc stars, whatever. If you have a Bloodhound, or let's say you don't have wall hacks, right? You want to figure out there's always going to be one player's, split on like a building fight or in the fight in general, usually, because they're playing Wraith or Octane, and usually the opponents are solo queuing, their communication, like someone's going to get split. It's like 90% of the time because they're solo queuing and they're not communicating, and people are going to do their own thing, right, in a fight. So when if you're ever finding an overly aggressive team, try to single out that one player that is by himself, or even a duo that's out of position, and then you can take advantage of the fight and win the fight because you just took out a player for free. Now you've made it 3v2 or even a 3v1. So there you go.
All right, we've got this next one. Quite a few people, I think, are in a similar situation where they're just trying to start and kind of get their name out into the comp situation, right? Going to challenger circuit, things like that. So from Astro CC from Alberta, Canada, what advice can you give to new players who have minimum comp experience, but they want to try to make it in the pro league like you? How'd you get your start? Maybe your experience like with TSM and stuff like that too.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah. So what advice can you give new players who have minimum comp experience, but they're looking to get more?
Oh, okay. Minimum comp experience. I know I answered this question also like a couple nights ago. Best way so from what I know, like right now, I might be wrong. I've seen other people like say it too. I know there's like some stuff on Reddit. I don't know if it's the Apex Reddit or the Apex Comp Reddit. They sometimes post like third-party tournaments that people can play in. I also know you can go on GLL. You literally just type in GLL in Google, and that's also like another third-party company where they host, scrims and I think like little GLL cups. That's what they call it. We used to play those, but they eventually kind of just died out because, people didn't take them serious. So we kind of just, the higher tier players just don't play the GLL cup. But since we're talking about, players that are just coming into competitive, then like stuff like, GLL, going through, the GLL website, signing up on there for scrims. I think they have scrims every single day if they have enough teams to, fill up the lobby. And they also have GLL cups. I don't remember what day they're on, but they have like a GLL cup, which is what like their kind of their tournament every single week. There's also, I think that's like the only two things. You can also play ranked to, play with your teammates. And, I know ranked, like I said earlier, that ranked is not even close to like competitive games or whatever. But, the NA comp scene for Apex is, very bad when it comes to practice. So you're gonna be very limited. Like even like even us TSM, we're very limited. We barely even get practice ourselves for tournaments that has a lot of money on the line. So I think the best way to, if you're first going into competitive with a little experience, try to sign up on GLL, try to do those scrims or the GLL cups, try to play with your team in ranked as much as possible. Yeah, I think that's the best way.
All right, we're just gonna wrap up with a few more here. One more is from a console player, Lavender Cheddar from Atlanta, Georgia. How do you practice at movement and tracking, specifically on controller?
On controller, huh?
So, we've got a lot of people asking this question. So,
okay, so for controller, you can't do that much on controller because you're limited for movement. But I know one thing that I've been like, I think it was Jen Burton that told me, because he's a controller player, like one of the best controller players in Apex. Like higher sensitivity on controller can actually help your movement on controller. Since typically the reason why typically your movement on controller is really bad is because your sensitivity is really low. Like people play on 4.4 or even 5.5. Like 5.5 is considered low. So I think if you really worry about like your movement on controller, then I suggest maybe increasing your sensitivity just a bit. Like if you're playing 4.4, go with 5.5 or something like that, or even play on ALC. If you guys know what ALC is on controller, try to ALC. I like I said, I don't have a lot of experience on controller, but I think that's like the best thing that I can recommend to improve with movement on controller is to increase your sensitivity a bit, so you can move around more and stuff like that. Because playing like stuff like on 4.4 can limit your movement. And what was the other part of the question? Movement and what was the other thing?
Tracking specifically. So tracking.
Oh, tracking.
Yeah.
Oh, I know a lot of another thing. I've watched a lot of like controller players and a lot of players play in general in Apex. So I think another thing like to practice like tracking, and not even tracking, but just aim for controller is to go to the firing range. Like I don't use firing range at all because I'm mouse and key, but I know I've seen like Jen Burton, I've seen Panders, I've seen a bunch of like really good controller players. They go into the firing range and just shoot the dummies. They just shoot the dummies and they shoot the targets and stuff like that. And that can help you with your centering with controller. It can help you with your like tracking, obviously. So I think the best way to help with your tracking or just aiming with the controller is to get that warm-up routine like the other controller players like Jen Burn. I highly suggest, if you want to learn like how to like get a routine in the firing range, watch Jen Burn, because he does it all the time. Where he just shoots targets and stuff like that. So yeah.
All right, last couple here. The next one I think is really, really important. This is related to communication. From Topax from Illinois, has been playing Apex for about a year and a half. What kind of advice can you give in terms of practicing giving good comms? Right, obviously pro teams, everyone's really clear, everything's very descriptive and things like that. But what advice do you have for giving comms that are meaningful but short during a fight? Because I think there's a lot of players out there who, once they're in a fight, they're only focusing on the fight, right? They no longer know what to comm. It's too much stuff. Like, what advice do you have there?
That's a good question. You see, even like communication is the most complicated thing. Like See, our team has had, communication problems like in game, right? Like we even do it, right? We still have communication, right? So I'm even figuring that stuff out myself in this very moment, even after playing 2 years. You think communication is like I would think communication is so simple, but it's actually so complicated and important when it comes to like competing or just playing with other people in general, or just in anything in life, right? So when it comes to like figuring out what's more important to say and when to say it, it's just through experience, right? Like I can't, it's because since it's a BR, it's very situational. And the best, and it also depends on who you're playing with. Like, some players are very quiet and they don't say anything, right? It kind of just depends on who you're playing. Like you kind of have to just, go with the flow and like work with who you're playing with and tell them, hey, if you're being, if your teammate is playing, being too quiet, or they're saying things that are just, it really just depends. Like that question is like, you can answer that question so many different ways, because that, like I said, communication is so complicated depending on who you're playing with. If they're playing controller, like typically when you play with controller players, they usually tunnel, right? They don't talk. They kind of just, they're very focused on fighting, which is like an issue, right? You want to be communicating. Hey, they're gonna be like, hey, I'm going left, I'm going right, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You want to be communicating. Honestly, it's better to over communicate than under communicate ever, right? In any situation, right? It's very like, if let's say if you do over communicate with your team and you say every single little thing that you're doing, like I'm going left, I'm taking this angle, I'm about to shoot this guy in the back, blah blah blah. It's also like when you're at that point, it's important to be able to distinguish what's like more important, what's not, important. And I think the best way to do that is to like your volume. Like if you raise your voice and saying, push this by yelling or whatever, then your teammates would understand, hey, we should probably do that, right? And compared to like if you keep the same volume, I feel like with every call out that you make, then the sense of urgency or importance is just not there, and your teammates won't be on the same page. So I think that's the best way I can answer that question.
No, fantastic. All right. Let's see. One last question from. Let me just pull one here. So from Raid from Alberta, Canada, who's been playing since April this year and reached Plat 4 this season, starting to notice that in close range fights, especially with the EVA 8, they're very hit or miss fights, right? They're not very consistent. He's either hitting all his shots or hitting none of them, right? Yes. Do you have any specific tips for the EVA 8 or, close range fights?
Perfect. Actually, this is funny because I used to do this with Zach. If you guys know who Zach Mazer is, he's on the Cloud9 competitive team for Apex Legends. We used to, before at tournaments, we would literally just throw a bubble. We would go into the firing range and we would just throw bubbles down and fight with whatever shotgun was meta. So like before it was PK or Mastiff or whatever, we would just throw the bubble down in 1v1 in firing range like 50 million times in the bubble, or even without the bubble. You don't even have to throw a bubble down. But usually, because in this case right now, like we're talking about, EVA and bubble fights and stuff like that, like close range fights, firing range can be your best friend in that situation, right? So you can get another friend, another player, like, if you're playing in ranked and you find somebody that's as good as you don't want to 1v1 that's like worse than you, right? Because like, I guess you can improve them and help, and they can get to your level, and then you can help you. But you want to get someone in the firing range that you're 1v1ing that's either as equal skill level as you or clearly better than you, right? So you go into the firing range, throw some bubbles down, 1v1 as much as possible with EVA, whatever shotgun that you use. EVA, obviously, in this meta. I don't know. I haven't played enough yet. I don't know if like PK. I played the PK a little bit, but I still think EVA is still the meta in this like right now. So right now, I think the best advice is to go into the firing range, get a friend that's as good as you or better than you, and just take as many 1v1 close range EVA 8 fights as possible and go from there.
All right. With that last question, I think we're going to be calling it for today. Thanks so much, Al, for your time. I think everyone's gotten a kick out of you roasting Snipe. We got some really, really, really in-depth answers for a lot of these really important questions. So this has been fantastic. And don't worry, guys, we've got a few more of these actually throughout this month. So it's going to be an amazing time. I think We just released the bootcamp content. So for anyone who hasn't checked the actual modules, right, Hal introduced this at the beginning. So you guys get a lot of content, a lot of assignments to go through this month. It's going to be awesome. So I think everyone's here to learn. Everyone's here to get better. And Hal's going to be here with you every step of the way. So thanks so much for your time, Hal.
No problem. As I said earlier, guys, if I know it was only an hour. I like two nights ago, I was in like the question channel answering questions, like whatever it is. So if I didn't get to your questions today, just I'm guessing I don't know. I think the best spot is just type in the under bootcamp resources under questions and just at me there. And I'm going to be busy the next couple of days. I'm going to be moving and stuff like that, so I might not be able to get to it. But on the off chance, if you guys do have a question, feel free to at me in the question channel, and I'll try to get to it.
All right, thanks so much. Hopefully everyone's as excited about the bootcamp as we are, man. It's gonna be an awesome time.
It's gonna be great. I can't wait to help you guys as much as I can.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we're gonna end the call here. But thanks everyone for your time. Appreciate it. I know a lot of you guys have got work and stuff going on, but thanks so much for attending. This has been a fantastic experience. So
have a good one, everybody.
All right, bye.
Bye.